This is Dan Dicks here reporting for Press for Truth, and it's crunch time, my friends. The battle for food freedom is raging on now, and it's kicking into overdrive as the powers that ought not be are continuing to want to control every single little thing that you consume. So now it's becoming more important than ever to work on your food security and food freedom moving forward as they continue to try to maintain that grasp of control. Well, I have a great show lined up for you today, ladies and gentlemen, to talk about all of that. So let's just jump right into it. Joining me on the line right now is my good friend, Curtis Stone. He's got a very exciting new program to talk about. It's going to help you guys set up for exactly this that we're talking about. Now, Curtis, before we get into all of this, man, once again, thank you for joining us here on Press for Truth. How is life going on the homestead these days, my friend?
Hey, Dan. Yeah, thanks for having me, dude. The homestead's great. We just finished butchering 32 chickens and 3 turkeys. So that's literally what I just finished up doing before getting on the call with you. Homestead's good. You know, it's a big crunch right now to get things ready for winter, getting things winterized, getting things off the ground. Had to, finish those chickens. I still got a ton of crops to harvest. I got to trim my buds. And still got a lot of that to do. But no, it's great. And I'm keen to show your audience some stuff that I've been working on with my company, Freedom Farmers, about getting on the land. And I've talked to you about this for years, about just people, the importance to get on the land, and how I think there's going to be a mad dash when we see this next real estate bottom to get on, and we're going to see State Street Bank, BlackRock, and Vanguard buying up massive amounts of properties, and it's going to be a mad dash to. I think we could see one of the last opportunities for people to actually get on the land once we go through this great reset thing, whatever it's going to be. But I was kind of hoping.
You recall in the early stages of the pandemic, as we call it, a lot of people kind of realized that, oh man, I got to get out, and they kind of rushed into home buying.
Yes.
Some people, and they made a few mistakes, and they're thinking, I probably rushed into it, even though their hearts and their minds were totally in the right place. Well, we seem to be in a little bit of a lull, like before COVID 2.0, this pandemic comes around again. Now is that time again where people are going to start thinking about these things. So
well, you know what's, I'll just, sorry to interrupt, but what I could add to that is what we're seeing now too is the after effect of that. They called them COVID buyers, and I was one of them. I was amongst a cohort of people during those 2 years of lockdown where people were just in a mad dash to get on the land, and there was crazy competitive, and there was numbered corporations at the time just going around buying stuff all over BC. You know, you and I are both in BC, and we were seeing this. But now what we're seeing is, because we've had a year and a half of kind of normality as far as, if you're sort of a normie, I guess to say, that they're selling their properties that they bought during the COVID panic. And now you're seeing these homestead properties come up for sale. And there's some really interesting opportunities in some places, not all. I mean, places, BC, forget about it, Canada in general, but some places of the US right now, really interesting opportunities. And you're seeing these places go up for sale. But what you're seeing in BC too is a lot of these COVID buyers are trying to sell, and they're asking for a ridiculous price that they're never going to get. And if they don't start lowering the price, they're going to get less than they even were offered. Because once the bottom of this comes out, and we're coming up to this 5-year interest rate cycle, because, in Canada, we have 5-year renewable terms. And so all those people that bought during COVID, that's 2 years up to 3 years ago, their terms are going to be renegotiated. They might have bought in at 2% on $1 million property. Now they're going to renegotiate at 8% on $1 million property that's probably worth half that today, maybe, but they can't afford it. And so we're going to see a sell-off of a lot of good homestead properties.
Well, one of the big factors that was difficult for these people is finding the right place. I mean, that's probably one of the bigger challenges when it comes to, what are your needs? What is the land setup? What's in the area? There's so many things to cover. You guys put together a fantastic program about finding the perfect homestead. But now
Yes.
you're kicking that up a notch. Tell us about what you've designed with this interactive map and all this stuff, because I think this is a really, really fantastic opportunity for viewers. If anybody has this on their minds right now,
Yeah.
because you guys have
Oh,
covered all your tracks. Yeah, tell us about
totally.
it.
Well, what I did was I often start with, I know I kind of come at all this stuff with an abundant mindset, similar to you in that there's lots to go around, and I've never been held my cards close to my chest as far as my information and what I do and my expertise. And so what I did last spring when we talked about this last time is I created a program teaching people my observational skills on how I rank land. So looking at climate, geography, socioeconomics, water, access, circulation, soil, all these things, vegetation, wildlife, all these things, how to evaluate what makes a good piece of land. We had a lot of success with that course. A lot of people took it, but we also had a lot of people reach out to us and be like, hey, well, would you guys just mind doing it for us? And we already kind of had the infrastructure set up to do that because we profiled so many properties to create the course that we said, well, let's just try it. So we started with, I don't know, maybe 15 people that were paying $300 a month for this service. And we were basically queuing up 10 to 15 properties a week in the states or jurisdictions that they requested. And so we grew that and we improved it. And then we started to build an inventory of properties because we're now over 100 properties we've done. And a lot of them are still in the market. And so what we've done is we've aggregated all the data and put it into a mapping software that we built. And if you give me screen sharing possibilities, I can show some of this. But basically what we have is similar to what you go on realtor.com or realtor.ca or Redfin or whatever program you use, and you have a map and you got listings. You can comb through thousands of listings. But what we've done is we've curated it all. So every single property in our software that you see is approved by myself and my team. And I've done a full analysis of it. So every time you go to a property, you can watch the video that I did on it in Google Earth, analyzing all the topography, everything about it, soil, water, all this stuff, and looking at the infrastructure, evaluate it and saying, yes, this is an A or a B property. We only really publish top rated or okay, decent properties, but nothing beneath. And so anybody who's looking for land can literally go on our map and look at a property, and it's guaranteed going to be a winner. There might be something about it you don't like, but it has food. It has the capacity for food, water, energy, and shelter. And so the water, every property we do has two sources of water. So it's either going to have a pond or a well or a stream or any combination of that. And so basically these are prepper properties. They're like permaculture prepper properties that are more or less turnkey.
So we're not talking about, suburban life here
No.
We're talking off-grid lifestyles that have already been, like, you've mapped out the what would you call it, the telegraphy,
The topography, the geography, the topography.
Yeah.
Totally.
And so obviously including water is a huge part. So if someone like myself were to say, Curtis, I'm looking for a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, I want 1 to 5 acres of land, and I want growing space, and I want to be able to have my own power.
Yes,
You guys
we have all that.
Right.
You can literally, in our software, you can filter for all those things. So you can filter for arable land and you can filter for vegetation. So you say, and you filter for size. So you say, I want 50 acres. I want at least 5 acres of arable land so that I could do maybe some commercial farming with some ambitious homesteading. I want to have at least 5 acres of vegetation, wild forest, what have you. I can filter for, I want a place with a pond. I can filter for on-grid, off-grid, grid tied. And then we can filter through climate regions. Or zones or climate zones. So I can say, I'm only interested, I want to live in a warmer climate, but I'll be interested in anywhere between Kentucky and Southern Texas. So I can filter for zone 9 through 10 or zone 8 through 10. And I can say, I want temperate climates. It's insane. Our filtering is incredible. So basically you can tell it what you want for your homestead, and then if there's properties in our listings that are there, you'll see them, and then that's it. And so the thing that's going to save people huge is the time. And too, because you've looked at properties for a long time. You and I have talked about this for years, and You want to find a property, you got to go online, comb through a bunch of crap, and then maybe you narrow it down to 5 you want to view. Then you got to drive to those, and often 9 times out of 10, there's something there that you could have maybe seen, but you didn't because your eyes weren't tuned to it, and you rule out that property right away. So you just wasted a day to drive to this property. So our lists are basically so they're so thoroughly looked at, and it goes through 3 sets of eyes. It goes through our first guy who batches things. He'll look at 200 properties to find 10, and then it goes to another guy who basically takes that, and he's a bit more trained, and he'll go through about 50 of those property to narrow down 10 to 15 for me. Then it comes to me, and sometimes I even eliminate things. Our team's getting so good at it that I'm not eliminating much anymore. When it comes to me, it's usually pretty good. But then I do the final evaluation, and then I look at a property and I talk about possibilities. I'll show, this is where I'd put my barn. This is where I'd put my chickens. This is where I'd put the gardens. This is how I'd irrigate it, whatever it is. We look at all that stuff. So people they'll look at a property and they'll also have a dozen ideas about what they could do with it. So it's insanely valuable.
So it's really geared towards preppers and the prepping lifestyle, and anybody who wants to be self-sustainable with food freedom, right? Because this isn't like
and farmers,
realtor, farmers too.
Yeah, well, farmers too. I would say, yeah, the people this is going to serve the most are, yeah, number one, you want to get out of the city. We only really look at rural and maybe peri-urban areas. So rural is in the bush like I am, lots of trees. There's no big farms around me or anything. And then peri-urban areas are the areas that are outside of suburbia where the farms are. So sometimes we look at properties in those areas, but generally not, because the way we look at all this is kind of praying for the how do you say it? Planning for the worst and hoping for the best. So when we analyze properties, I imagine if I'm within an hour of a city, I imagine you stamp on a hornet's nest and all the hornets come out in 1 or 2 directions. I imagine the highways to be something like that. And we look at logistically, if people were to flood out of a city for a variety of reasons, could be a food crisis, could be an energy crisis, could be another COVID scam, whatever it is, people get out, where are they going to go? Like imagine being in the lower mainland, Vancouver, in Abbotsford and Langley and all those places. If the shit were to really hit the fan in Vancouver, people would flood out into those areas and gobble up all those farms. People would be raiding and stealing. So you don't really want to be in those types of areas. You want to be a little bit more tucked away. And so that's mostly what we're looking at is, yeah, you're either into permaculture, you're a prepper, you might want to do some kind of sustainable agriculture, some regenerative agriculture, that kind of thing. We don't look at properties that are meant for 300 acres of cornfield. We're not looking at that, because that's a whole other thing. We're looking at people like us, people in our community who want to get the hell out of the city, and they want to start setting something up on the land, and they want to get on that land, and there has to be some capacity to do that right away. Otherwise, if you build too much infrastructure, the cost of building today is insane. And I can tell you, I've been in a construction project for 3 years here, or this is the 3rd year, and it's insane. You cannot build what you can buy. You can, especially some states like Alabama, Mississippi, Northeast Texas. You look at some properties, they're a third of what they would cost to build today, and they'll even have new stuff in them.
Yeah, I think that's what a lot of the viewers who are really interested in this might be wondering is, what kind of numbers are we talking about here? Like in British Columbia, house prices can be quite expensive for something
insane.
You get the privacy, you get all the things we're looking for. So are we talking millions and millions of dollars here?
No.
Or do you actually have some listings that are in the, I don't know, 300-400 range? What?
Yeah. No, not in Canada. Not in Canada right now. We will soon, but in the US, yes. In the US right now, Dan, I mean, what we pay in BC is often, you compare it to a place, say apples to apples, take say 50 acres in BC, like our mutual friend, kind of a property he might have with there's got some animals in there, he's got a well, there's some infrastructure like a barn, there's a house that's half decent, a decent home. Sometimes we look at some fixer-uppers, but we don't really have to that much because there's a lot of inventory right now. But we look at a place it's a nice home. In BC, it would cost 1.5 million. You go to a place like Alabama or Mississippi, 350,000.
Wow.
it's absolutely off the chains. I mean, but there's some places in the US that you just can't get. Like the Southwest in the US is very difficult to find. And literally we probably comb through 300 to 500 properties a week, every single week, mostly in the US. We'll look at properties in Canada too. If our customers ask us, we do, and we list them, but they have to have a different expectation of price, because as you know, you just can't get the value. What we're seeing in Canada though, especially in BC, is there's nice properties out there, but they're asking $500,000 more than they're actually going to get. And so a lot of people are going to lose their shirts in the next year, couple of years, and they're already starting to. I mean, even in my area here, I've seen some properties that have been listed for over a year, and they come down maybe 50,000, maybe 100,000, but they're kind of sitting at the place that it's just still not sustainable. Yeah. And so, but in the US, so the Southeast of the US is a totally other game. There's a lot of inventory. It's a lot more history. You know, people have been there for longer. There's more people there. So there's a bit more supply, active supply and demand metrics moving around. Whereas the Southwest, just stuff's not moving and it's not that available. Or even up in the Northwest, good luck too. But the Southeast, Alabama, Mississippi, Arkansas, Oklahoma, if you want to live there, Tennessee, still decent values. Kentucky, unbelievable what you can buy in a place like Kentucky. I mean, it would make you shudder, because you've been looking at real estate for a long time, but you look at some of these places that we have, and the home is beautiful. Like, it's unbelievable Southern style architecture, brick, really good building materials. And it's like a mansion with an acreage for maybe $500,000. And that would be a high price for a place down there. It's crazy.
Wow, that's unbelievable that you've managed to find all these things that have the things that anybody who's interested in the off-grid type of lifestyle would have at those prices. So
I know,
you know, the fact that you've you know, made this so easy for everybody and put it together is such a handy resource for anybody who's interested in. And as we said, we got so many things going on in the world right now. You know, we got COVID 2.0 pandemic might be coming back anytime. You know, we've got like, you know, you got guys like Bill Gates out there trying to get you to stop consuming, you know, real food and to get consuming their stuff.
Meanwhile, he's buying up millions of acres of farmland.
Exactly. Right? He's going out there buying up the farmland, and so you've curated this information into a neat little package, and you guys are offering something right now. I believe the offer goes on until the Saturday night at midnight.
Saturday night midnight. Yeah. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that, because this is such a big opportunity right now.
Yeah. Okay. It's called Freedom. So our platform's called freedomfarmers.com. It's a content platform for courses. So I have another content platform called FromTheField.tv, and it's vlogs of farms, and I'm not the only one that makes videos for it and stuff like that. But Freedom Farmers is all courses. So the way I like to describe it is, we'll teach you how to get on the land and do everything after that. So we have courses on holistic land management, raising pigs on pasture, birds on pasture. We've got courses on microgreens, market gardening, greenhouses, all the kind of things you can do with your land. That's all centered around small scale regenerative agriculture. And so the offer we have is, you get access for one yearly payment, $400. You get access to all the courses. And a lot of these courses are $400 to $500 to $1,000 themselves each. So now we have about 20 courses in the platform. But then we've got the property map, which is integrated our Homestead Accelerator program that we used to just run as an own program, $300 a month, and people paid for it because it was valuable. But because we've used software, we've been able to, it's kind of like you make the nicest thing first so that you can get the infrastructure to make the cheaper thing later. You know, like the Elon Musk strategy with the Model X to the Model 3 kind of thing. We kind of did that. And so now we've got the technology and way to aggregate all these listings. So when somebody signs up for Freedom Farmers Pro, they get access to all the courses. They get access to our weekly properties that we publish consistently every single week. Every Friday, a list comes out of minimum 10. And then it keeps added to the map. But you also get an email that shows these are the new properties. So if you just want to look at those, you can. And then we have a whole community on our back end too. So we have a whole members community. There's chat groups and things like that. And we have a members map. So people don't have to share their address, but if they want to, there's a members map. So you can go, if you're in Tennessee, you might be going, Well, who's in Tennessee that is kind of awake? Because our community is about homesteading and off-grid and prepping, but because of that, everybody's awake. You know, we don't have any people that are freaking out about masks and stuff like that and are worried about the latest liberal thing. It's all people that are truthers, and these communities have kind of amalgamated over the COVID scam, which has been kind of cool, actually. But that's kind of what this place is. So when people sign up for this, it's just an annual, and we will have other iterations to offer later, but this is our best offer. It's the most value, cheapest for value. And so that's what it is. And so the offer runs until Saturday at midnight. And if people sign up, then if they sign up with your link, Dan gets a good percentage of that. So you guys will be supporting Dan, and it's a win-win. You know, you can support his work and then get a valuable service that we provide that can really change your life. And we already have customers coming out of our program that are buying the properties we've listed, and they're changed their lives. They got out of the city. They're on a property that they don't have any problems with. Because if you buy the wrong property and you missed something, now you got a property. What are you going to do with it? You're not going to sell it right away, right? So it can change your life for the better or completely change it for the worse. Yeah.
Well, with this offer just ending on Saturday, I think it's a big opportunity. And even if you're not necessarily currently in the market, you know, they often say life insurance is not something you want to think about when you're on, you know, your deathbed.
Right. That's a good way of putting it.
Yep. Yeah, you got to think about these things, before they happen. So you don't want to get caught in this next COVID 2.0 type scenario where you're saying, I got to get out of the cities and then start doing the research.
No. And if you're trying to get out of the city when everybody else is trying to get out of the city, you're not going to get out of the city.
Right.
So there's no downside to being hip to what's going on in the market and keeping an eye on things, because sometimes something might change very drastically and then you can execute. And whereas if you're just going in blind and, now I'm going to start looking for real estate or a place to live when everybody else is. But the thing is that I really believe that your biggest competitor in this next real estate correction is going to be State Street, BlackRock, and Vanguard.
Yep.
And this is where the whole you'll own nothing and be happy is going to go, is they're just going to use commercial means to just buy things up, because we've seen them do it before, right? They do these pump and dumps, and then they bankrupt you, and then they go up and buy up all these assets for pennies on the dollar, while all these poor suckers paid a mortgage for 30 years, especially in Canada. This is going to be so heartbreaking, as people are going to be in a 30-year mortgage and they're going to go bust 10 years into it, and they lost on their equity.
Yep.
But they're going to have no choice, because the mortgage they signed was on the price when they bought it, not the price today. And so that's a great injustice, but it is what it is. And so if you can be prepared for that and you stay ahead of the curve, you might come out in a huge opportunity, especially if you have some cash. Because when these prices go down, if interest rates stay high, which I think they will, prices have to go down, and nobody will buy if the prices are too high and the interest rate's too high, not even the bank.
Right.
So the prices have to go down so that you can go into a place that was previously $800,000. You might come in at 250, but only have to borrow on 100,000. You know, that might be 20% interest, but it's only on 100,000, right? And so the circumstances will change. And if you're ready for that, you got a little bit of Bitcoin you can cash out, a little bit of precious metals you can cash out. People could come out very well in this and be very situated for when things get harder.
And I would add to that the global powers that ought not be, one of the biggest things they fear moving forward is a truly independent, free society who's capable of, not sucking at, the government's teats and being reliant on nanny handouts or anything like that, and being self-reliant, self-sustainable, able to run their own lives all on their own. That's the biggest threat. That's the biggest enemy of the New World Order. So maybe if you want to fight the system, this is another excellent way to do that. So any final thoughts on that before we wrap it up? The thing is ending in like a matter of hours. It's
48. I guess almost 48 hours. We're Friday afternoon, so tomorrow midnight. I agree with everything you say there, and you want to stay ahead on these opportunities, because this might be the last time to make it, and times are changing fast. As we seem to be in some kind of quickening, because think about it. All the woke stuff is gone to 11. All the the mass migration gone to 11, the climate change hysteria to 11. They're just dialing it all up. And so I'm not saying that getting on the land is the only way through this, because it might come to a time where we all have to stand up and fight in some regard. I don't know. But I think if you can be on the land and you can take responsibility for, like I said, food, water, energy, shelter, you can take more responsibility for those things, the less they can pinch you. That's where being on the land is. You talk to people or look at history movies of people that survived Weimar Germany or survived Stalin's Russia. A lot of it was people that held metals and had real things, liquid things to trade, and also had skills to trade, but were on the land and out of the city, because governments are like farmers and they herd their animals into corrals so that they're more easily controlled. And that's why cities are essentially a technocratic farm, especially as we move into further this 5G smart cities and all this. They can control you that way. And so I've always said, more people equals more government equals less freedom. And so if you can be in places where there's less people, there's less government by its virtue. And so there's less ways they can pinch you. And so, maybe you don't have to go super rural. You could be at least out of the blast area, call it, with the shit hits the fan. And we look at all kinds of options that people can see. But yeah, people want to learn more. They can just go to your link and then go that'll be at Freedom Farmers, and then they can just learn more about it. There's some videos up there that show the platform. And we're seeing people get on the land than I've ever seen in my entire career. I've been consulting for this forever, and it takes time to do a consult. I would charge people $400 for me to view 3 properties because I'd spend an hour doing it, but then they'd make a good decision, either not to buy or to buy. But now we do it, and we've outsourced it where you can literally look at 100 listings that are all A-grade homestead properties and just choose the one you like in the place you want to be. And it's going to have everything you need. And so not even realtors can do that for you. And we don't have any skin in the game. We post listings we don't make any money on them. We just look, and it's all public information, but we go and source and aggregate data to embellish the offer more than what the realtor is giving you, way more. But that's what I'd say. Go to your link, check it out, and see if it can help you.
That's awesome, man. Everybody, I really want to encourage you to check out that link. It's going to be the top link in the description below. Again, now's the time to look into this sort of stuff. You don't want to be caught off guard. When, as Curtis said, the shit's hitting the fan, you don't want to be caught off guard here and trying to scramble to do your research. Curtis and his team have already done the legwork. They've done the research. They compiled all the best perfect places for exactly this. It's such a good resource. I want to strongly encourage everyone to definitely check it out. So once again, man, Curtis, thank you so much for taking some time to break down this new awesome opportunity that you guys have created for everyone.
Thanks a lot for having me, Dan. Always a pleasure.
Take care. We all want truth. The truth will set you free.